See you. Yours? Hashem. It's Hanukkah? Hashem, yeah.
No, beautiful. So they say. See what actually happened. Yeah, please. You are Mr. L'chaim.
Yeah, about the sponsor. Dr. Rubner. Yeah. So it's a special. Yeah. Is that parents? Yeah. I see. There's an Esther. Is that your mom? Monday. She's on. She can hear. She's moved away from me. If she has questions, I let her ask.
Yeah,
I am. It's being streamed right away.
I'm going to get through a lot over here. So.
Oh, really? Okay, so we better get.
Just remember, I'm always starting. It's only 10 after.
Let's go. Go.
We won't charge you double time. Okay. Chaim, everybody. Chaim, Shkrech to Dr. Rubner. Kleinem is Kalman Reb Moshe, right?
Yes.
Kleinem is Reb Moshe. Neshom's having Aliyah.
Kleinem is Kalman.
Kleinem is Kalman. Chaim. Reb Mordechai comes on 72-hour notice and bless. We haven't given partial by yetzer, right? We established no by yetzer yet. Okay.
Given on Topus and given on the Yusach.
Right. Rabbi said we're going to start.
Get you out of bridges. I
have. It's been other. Pesach.
Okay. So I want to cover a couple of different topics if everybody's time allowing. I'll try to bridge two different topics. Let's start like this. The pasuk says, so first of all, to be also a first letter for Simcha, Bas El, Bas Anabash. Okay, so the pasuk says, "B'yachloim b'nei sulam mutzav artza v'rishon negesh." Yaakov finally takes a nap. Finally takes a shlof. It's a dream. Sulam mutzav artza v'rishon negesh. This is a ladder. Bottom all the way up to the top. But there were malachim, angels are going up and coming down, back and forth. Rashi right away points out, he says, he was backwards. The angels are in heaven. Where the malachim, they should have been upstairs coming down. So it should have been Yarden and Oilim. Over here it's the opposite. So Rashi explains the malachim should livu ba'aretz ha'yetzer chutz la'aretz or the rakia v'yardu malachi chutz la'aretz l'lovoisa. Rashi explains that since the malachim weren't going to chutz la'aretz, so therefore these malachim over here they had to go back up, and then there were the new ones that came back down. That's Rashi's pshat. A lot of Torah on that. The first one over here discussed this. And there's many different shatim that I brought over here. First of all, the Hamek Dover says an incredible answer. I'm just going to quote, right? Usually we say the Shechina is upstairs. But the Shechina surrounds a person. We have the Eibush surrounding us all the time. We have always surrounded by Hashem. And since over here, there was a reason, something that was happening down over here, the Mela, the Shechina was Lamata at Ba'aretz. So at this point, the Shechina was down over here. It was surrounding in the Shlichus what they were doing. Therefore, the Malachim started from down here, going up instead of the opposite way. That's the second shot. There's another shot. The Ein Lamikra writes another shot from the 1800s. He writes that the Malachim that we create down over here when we do Torah mitzvahs, we create malachim. We send those upstairs. That we create. There's like we find the famous words of the Hilgah Baal Shem Tov. It says Hashem Tzilcha. There's a shadow, meaning you can do this. You ever see the way a shadow works? You keep your hand this way, so it creates a shadow that way. The Eibush is really a mirror image of what we do. We set the boundaries. We set the way that Eibush works with us. Shem Tzilcha.
When's it Yarden? If you do a mitzvah, it's oil.
Okay.
But when's it Yarden?
The point is, he says, but the point is that there is this phenomenon of us sending upstairs. David just sends back his shefa, he returns the shefa back to us. So we send up, and he mirrors, and he sends it back down. That's us creating the reality. And Reb Chaim writes on the words in Pirkei Avos, "Da malamala, you know what's above you." So he says, read it this way: "Da malamala, you want to know what's upstairs? It's from you. This that you've done down over here, there's that ripple effect that we go and we shake the rope, and it has a reverberating effect upstairs. That's another chat over here. That's the Kenyan Baltais says something incredible. This is where we're going to start moving from. He writes, "Bihine malachim lekim olim, hainu hamalachim shahochu lafich esedaim." Way back when there was a story in Sodom, there were malachim over there, but there's 135 years early. The malachim over there, they went to turn over Sodom. And while they were there, they're inside of the house of whose house were they in? Lot's house in Sodom. And while that happened, the neighbors got wind that there's a guest over there. They said, "We want to get to know him," the proverbial way of knowing. Not very good. That's what they asked for. Lot says, "Take my daughters, don't take him." Take my daughters, don't take the guests. When the Malachim heard about this, says Chazal, they heard that they were being asked to do such terrible avera. Right away, they turned to Lot and said, "We're getting out of here. We're about to go ahead and destroy Sodom." So just reading the words of the Dasakim about this. So let's just finish the story, sorry. Because they said that we're going to go and destroy, it seems that they got offended from this whole discussion. David just said, "You're getting offended? This has nothing to do with you. You're there for a shlichut. You're there to do David's work. Getting offended? Like you're taking a person? Nothing to do with you. Why are you getting offended?" Because they got offended, they were put in chayru. They were not allowed to go back upstairs to Shemayim. It was 135 years later, at this moment, these same malachim were finally allowed to go back up. So Olim, Yardim. So let me first read his words, and I'm going to add on a beautiful idea.
They got offended because of what
was being suggested for them to do. Yes.
Like you said, that the 135, they're the same ones who came to Appel.
So 135 years earlier, by Avram and Sudan, they were offended. Because they got offended, they were put in chayrim. They weren't allowed back upstairs. Now, 135 years later, his malachim would go up. So it wasn't. So he writes, "V'hinei malachim lekim oilim, hainu hamalachim shahochu lafich esedaim, shetolu hakavod la'atzman." It was their own covet over here. Forgetting about the Abraham's covet. Because they said
malachim. What was exactly what was they didn't have?
Human quality.
No, I want to understand what they were.
They want to be oil. No respect.
Let me just read his words.
No, there's something that's making
Hakavod la'atzman. Sha'amu ki mashchisim anachnu. L'kach nidchu me'mechitzasa.
Mashchisim anachnu is by Sodom.
Yes.
But they were there 135 years prior.
Let's get the timeline. In Sodom they said mashchisim anachnu.
Yeah.
And they were totally the covet in themselves.
So the anachnu is it why they said anachnu? Is it we're doing it?
Yeah, they said we are going to go ahead and destroy.
So the problem was that they said we as opposed to Hashem.
Right, but why did they say we're going to destroy at that point? It's like, oh, you said something insulting to me, we're destroying you guys.
Oh, I see.
So now, so the Fisha told our covet, but they're the covet in themselves. HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Now Hashem to
So L'kach nidchum me'mechitzasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu kuf lamed eshanim v'achshav alu. Now they finally got to go back up. Okay. So these were malachim. They were there. That's the story. They got offended. Now they get the chance to go back up. That's the medrash. Now,
where did they hang out? 135 years. That's what I
do.
The malachim have different things to do. They're eating kugel and salt. They don't eat. But so let me ask you, why not? Why was this the moment that they could finally go upstairs? looked, this question bothered me. I had a whole beautiful pshat, and I looked around because the pshat is so simple. It has to be someone who says the pshat. And finally, Baruch Hashem, I found the Reb Moshe. Reb Moshe writes this pshat. He says that at the moment when Yaakov Avinu in our parsha, what happened? What's going on over here? V'yikach b'av ne'amad. He didn't have a pillow. He had a big rock. No, he didn't have a pillow. He didn't even have any clothing. He had nothing. All he had was his walking stick because Eliphaz just robbed him blind. Yaakov Avinu was a wealthy man. He's got nothing left. Everything was taken from him. His dignity, everything stripped him. All he has is a walking stick, nothing else. At that moment, he's supposed to say, one second, I just sat and learned Torah for years. I haven't seen my family. I ran away. The brachas, what's going on? And I am left with absolutely nothing. That night, by Yol and Shem, he slept like a baby. He slept like nothing in the world bothered him. You're gone, you have nothing left. Nothing bothers him. A person like that shouldn't be able to sleep through the night. Nothing bothers him. You know why nothing bothers him? He said, this is what the Abishur wants of me right now. It's nothing to do with me. I don't set the rules. The Abishur sets what's going to happen in life. And if that's what the Abishur wants from me, I don't get offended. I don't get anything. I'm just doing the Ratzon of Hashem. And because at that moment, the Malachim would finally see this lesson taking place in life, right? So remember, I don't know that they saw this from a different, that such a story happened at a different time. So because they saw this at this moment, they took the Muslim and they said, hey, that's where we went wrong. This was about us. And we got offended when we should have realized we're just doing the Ratzon of Hashem. So now they saw this lesson. Now they're able to come back home. Now they're able to go back upstairs. This idea over here, it's interesting. What comes right after this? Next pasuk. In Hashem mitzav alav ve'emra ani Hashem elokei Avraham avicha elokei Yitzchak arts shat l'sheich v'lacha luchat and Ezra. Everything's becoming good. First of all, you have nothing right now. Don't worry. Not helping. You're going to have a lot. But what happens right afterwards? What's the bracha of ka'afar haaretz? You know we're going to be kechech v'ashmal. Right? We have all the types of brachas. What's ka'afar haaretz? We say, what do we say in the kindness of the Shainim Meir? So Sami Daber Mirma. Kale nafshi sidan. V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiya. What does that mean? It means that somebody throws a comment at me. Typically, I get upset. No, we're begging you, don't let me get upset. V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiya. Should be like shtai, like dust, where someone makes a comment, nothing happens. It doesn't register. I don't get offended. It's because Yaakov Avinu didn't let anything get offended. He didn't let himself get offended for anything that's happening. Because of that, he scored one for us that we would now get probably so we get this bracha, this ability to be able to walk away. When something offensive happens, it's not going to bother. If anything, what's going to happen is going to become the biggest bracha. I want to share with you a Maisa as we go further. I want to share with you a Maisa. Maisa that happened. I met somebody over here in town in the boat show. I met a person in town. We'll call him Reb Chaim Hakohen. His name is Reb Chaim Hakohen. So we'll call him that. I meet him. I used to know this person back in Eretz Yisrael in Eisharm. Spent some years in the Mir. This is 25 years ago plus. I haven't seen him since then. This person at the time was a gabbai, the right-hand man of an A-lister Rebbe, like a great Rebbe, not a Rebbe with 10 Hasidim, a big-time Rebbe. And Lamaisa, he got into the world of the Sfarim HaKadosh, of different Sfarim, and he no longer was able to remain, through political reasons, he couldn't remain as the Rebbe, but he remained very close with the Rebbe, but he couldn't remain as the Gabbai of that Hasidus. Okay, no problem. I knew him when he was the Gabbai, and I used to go to the Tish, and after the Tish was finished, 2 o'clock in the morning, give me some cholent if I wanted, or I'd walk home with him. I know him well for a while. I see him, I bump into him now, it's 20 years later. Bump into him, and, oh, Reb Chaim, how are you? Reb Mordechai, how you doing? How's everything? I don't speak English, it's all in Yiddish. And he says, he asked me how many children I have. We have 15, I know. Tell him how many. What about you? Up finish. So I used to go to him every week. He says, Reb Chaim, I remember only 4. When did you have your 5th one? There's the biggest smile comes on his face. He says, let me tell you a story. He says, I only had 4 children. He says, I got married by the 18 years old, he got married. 19, first child. 20, second child. 21, 22, he had 4 children. 4 kids. The town made me leathers. No more. Didn't have any more. You think it was others left? They should have taken a break anyway, right? You know, what's the big deal? So the problem is, he comes from a family of 16 children. His wife comes from 13 children. Every one of their siblings all have 10, 15 kids. And now it's year in, year out going on. They're all having children and they're still not having. He said, so you might think it's funny that at 4 kids, I felt like I had an empty home, but I really did. Now, I can't really begin to understand that, but okay, this is what he's telling me. They went to the doctors. The doctor said to them, Reb Chaim, be happy with what you got. Your wife will never have another child. Okay? It was very hard for them, but they accepted it. Still wanted, still davened, but that was it. I mentioned that he was a Gabbai of this big Rebbe, and he was no longer there. Purim night, a few years ago, he's walking, late Purim night, and he hears from this, he hears that there's a tish going on. He says, it's Purim, I'll step in. He hasn't been in there for a few years. He steps in, and sure enough, there's actually the Purim tish was happening, and the Purim Rebbe was standing on top of the tables, a couple thousand people. The Purim Rebbe is on top of the tables, and he sees this Chaim walking in, so he decides he's going to make him into the Chetzer Mitzvah. He goes and he changes whatever material, maybe he didn't have such good material, maybe he just took the material from a different Hasidus and just filled in the blanks, but now he has fresh material. Chaim Hakohen walks in, and he lets him have it. He rips into pieces in front of everybody, he talks about it, into this Hasidus and that, like, rips him apart. Guy doesn't know what hit him. And nobody stood up to say thank you or Emmy to protect him, to defend him. Just tell him that they're so sorry. He felt horrible. He walks out, he ran home crying in tears. Walks inside, his wife sees him. It's Chaim. It's Peter. Today is Purim. In the midst to be besimcha, you force yourself. What's going on with you? So, he didn't want to say anything, but she said, no, Chaim, what's happening? So he tells her what happened. So he says to me, she took my hand and she said, let's dance and say thank you, Hashem, for this, because we're going to accept it besimcha and we're going to be mochel and belev shalom, and we are going to have a child from the story. He says 9 months later they had a child. They called her Esther because this was the name support. The story that he tells me. So I said to him, this was in the schus that when something happened, something happens, they accepted it. So I said to him, Chaim, this is Mamash and Even Ezra in this week's parsha. The pasuk says, Parak Lamed pasuk Chav Gimel. V'yizkar Elokim es Rachel v'yishmer Elokim v'yiftach es Rachel. Finally, she has a child. V'atara v'tel l'bein, she could see she has a child. V'atomer also Elokim es Charpas. Hashem gathered my shame. Says Rashi, until now, it was embarrassing. I walked into the room, they'd say, hey, there's the one that doesn't have any children. Now, Baruch Hashem, I no longer a reason to be embarrassed. Says the Ibn Ezra. Incredible. It's nice for shmuz, Rav says, maybe. The Ibn Ezra writes this. He says, Rachem amuki Hashem ro'ah hacharafos shoyanoshem mecharfos. Every time I'd walk around and they'd make fun, Maybe should watch that happening. I accepted, and maybe should just saw it. And you know what Hashem did? Hashem gathered together, time in and time out, that I was embarrassed. Hashem gathered together, put it into a pushka, and now it cashed out. It was worth a child. The person in the fence, we accepted the Ahava, becomes worth something. Asafti es chepasi. Possible it is chepasi. Hashem gathered in. He said, that's your child. This is one idea. So I'd like to build on this. We still have a few more minutes. I'd like to build on this. So over here we had an idea of somebody who was broken. The wife built him up and said, what just happened seemed to have been a terrible thing for you. Let it build you. Let it become something good. There's an incredible Sfas Emes in this week's parsha. Show you it's really the Mharan MiPano MiPano writes this already in Asar Mamoris. But let's go at least the way the Sfas Emes brings it. He writes this parsha by Yetzer Tafresh Mem Dalet. The pasuk says, and I'm happy that we have Michal over here because you can help us with diktik. V'even gedoyla al pi habe'er. V'even gedoyla al pi habe'er. What does that mean? The Evan, the big Evan, was on top of the be'er. You know when there's a hey at the beginning of a word, it's a hey hayediyah. Meaning the well-known Evan was on top of the be'er. In fact, this first time, did we know anything about an Evan? Was there like a story about an Evan of Chumash before this? It's actually the first time. What's this hey hayediyah over here? You're supposed to, like the proverbial Evan, you're supposed to know something about this. This has this Sfas Emes. Well, we know there's a Gemara there's a Gemara at the end of Sukkah, days. Gemara tells us there are many different names for the yetzer. Gemara says 7. One of them is the Evan. One of them, a name of the Satan of the yetzer is Evan. He appears as a stumbling stone. He tries to go ahead and cause us problems. Well, Evan. So the pasuk says, "V'Evan gedoyla." When is this Evan? When is the yetzer the greatest? When is he at his biggest moment? Al pi be'er, when it's at the opening of the be'er. What's a be'er? So we all know from states of his famous Zohar. Right? This is more of a shemesh, and many of the Surah Mikdash will talk about this idea that when a person has a she'ifa, a person has a drive, and he starts climbing levels and levels in ruchnius, it's called a be'er. It's called a well. Why? Because just like by a be'er, the more you drag from it, the more water you step out. It just keeps on giving more and more. So too, when a person strives in ruchnius, she realizes just the beginning of incredible things. He can pull and go and climb endless amounts. So when is the Evan? When is the yetzer on the highest level? When does he try the hardest? Al pi be'er. When a person's right there at that moment when he's trying to access the be'er, he's trying to access the climbing and the growth. That's when he tries to stop us. That's one Sfas Emes. Sfas Emes goes further. Okay, so now we have Evan, reference to the Satan, reference to the yetzer. But now's where the dikta comes in. So the pasuk says, what happened to this Evan that was over there? The pasuk says, "Veigal as Evan." Veigal, a Yogel Yaakov as Evan, right? Al pi be'er. Let's find it inside. Right. What does it mean? Sorry, what was it? He rolled. Okay, but Yogel is Evan al pi be'er. He rolled it. Vayogel is Evan al pi be'er. Like this Sfas Emes. What does Vayogel mean? You just said it means he rolled. Rashi even tells us. By the way, just point. You look at the Onkelos, the Targum, the word that he uses the same word, but the Golol is Evan by the Royim. Right, the Royim went ahead. The shepherds went ahead and they rolled it. The Golol, they rolled it. Right. In fact, it's Sfas Emes. Golol and Vayogel is the same word. Same word, really? Sounds right. He says maybe it should have said indicative. It should have said the Golal Asab. Be consistent. Right? They did it. So the Golal or Vayigalal. We know Golal, right? A person is Hagbin and is Galila. Galila means to roll. What does Vayagal mean? So says the Sfas Emes, and again, Mharan MiPano writes this in Asar Mamoris, it's exactly the same thing. It says to be Megala. And we're going to get there. Reveal, to be Megala. To be Megala something. Vayogel is Evan. Vayigash Yaakov Vayogel is Evan al pi be'er. So Vayogel is a lotion of Gilui, to be Megala something. He says, what does this mean? This is an incredible thing. You got to open up the label for this. He says, in Avodah, there's 2 ways. Again, we're assuming that the word Evan over here means yetzer. Right? We plug that in. It's 1 plus 1. We're building over here. Evan means the yetzer. So a person sees something that's offensive, sees something that's destructive. What does he want to do? Just get rid of it quickly. So the Royim, the shepherds, they had that simple approach. We'll just roll it away. trying to get to the water inside. There's a stone there. Just roll it away. Get rid of it. It's blocking me. It's disturbing me. Just put it back, whatever it is, but get rid of it. That's what their mahalim. Yaakov Avinu teaches us there's a much higher level. To understand that you can actually work with the stone. To be Megal, to reveal its essence and to understand that it's not there as a stumbling block, but it's there as a building block. It's there to get us to the next level. And how does that happen? How does one do that? How does one do that? How are we Megal of the Evan? So the tzaddik avoid is to reveal nature and to use it as an essence. Just to quote the way that to quote his words, he says, "Enei ach nogaf klal ve'ikr." It's not there as a nogaf. Nogaf is something that's a stumbling block. Adrabahum b'sayeya sayeh l'adam avodas. It's there to help a person in his avodah. How? How does that work? So look at Rashi. Rashi over here says, "V'yigash Yaakov v'yagol ka'adam shemavir as hapekak me'alpit sloiches." You have a bottle. There's a bottle cap. You move it. So let's think of that muscle. What is that muscle? One movie say, okay, you have a bottle disposable, right? You're going to probably finish the kiddush. You'll probably finish the full bottle of vodka or the full whatever it is. Take the cap and throw it away. So it's a chashuv a bottle of wine. You're going to finish in one sitting. Maybe you're going to savor. You're going to hold on to it. Let's say you threw away the bottle cap. Are you going to just take the bottle of wine and stick it back in the cupboard without a cap on it? It's not going to hold its strength. It's not going to be as fresh. It's not going to be as, could be it's going to get dirt is going to fall in as well. So we're seeing that a bottle cap is not just, the purpose of a bottle cap is not just only because it's just stopping, cutting off the flow. It's actually there, it can help you. It can do good things. And by the way, yain megulim, what happens with wine that's open, that's left open? You have to throw it out. So when there's just a gili without a protection, it's also not a good thing. So therefore, says the Sfas Emes, the idea over here is go ahead and to protect and to help us. But now let's go one step further. You mentioned that maybe it means joy. So says Mharan MiPano, there's actually twice in Tanakh that says the word vayagel. This is one. And what's the other one we know from Tehillim? The pasuk says, "L'chein tzamach libi." It's a certain joy. Now he explains incredibly. He says, just want to read his words. There's a simcha to the Evan, le'evan noigif, to an Evan which seemed to have been a stumbling block. There's a simcha. There's mansha tzaddik ma'avir malpia be'er. Putting the two psukim together. He says when a tzaddik takes the stumbling block and removes it from on top of the well, there's a tremendous simcha to the Evan. Again, because the Evan we said is the yetzer. It says Shekain yetzer lasos ritzoin koinem lechavim. He says yetzer only wants one thing. He's not trying to mess us up. The yetzer has a job. He's there. He's put in this world for a job. What's his job? To help us serve Hashem. That's his job. We look at him. He's the bad guy. If we can use him, that we understand he's a tool to help us serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When there's something bad, you take something good, you make something good out of it. It's a different type of avodah, and that's the enjoyment that even the yetzer himself has. So what do we have yetzer? We have it first of all because the first thing is, the Gemara in Yuma says straight up, it's going to give us schar. If you work hard, you get schar. But more than that, let's go a little bit deeper, and we're going to try and wrap it up now. Shalom l'rochak l'akaret. Shalom l'rochak. So shalom means peace, but it's also a name of Hashem. That means that whether a person is rochak, whether a person is feeling very distant, sometimes we have that feeling we just feel so far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or whether it's karev, whether a person feels service, the shalom, Ebrish is right there. No matter what's going on in a person's life, Ebrish is there standing next to us the entire time. So why the distance? Well, the distance is actually to get us to feel, to work harder, to come closer. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So the Degel Machne trying to say an incredible emotion. An incredible emotion. Mizuk from the Degel. They say it like this. A child is learning to walk. As the child is learning to walk, so the father holds his two hands and gets him to take a step. Another step. Afterwards, he takes away one hand. He says, okay, now you're going to walk. I'm still holding you. One hand. After the kid has mastered that, then the father takes a step away from him. He says, come to me. Takes 2 steps away from him. Says, come to me. And the further he goes from him, the more the child works to come closer. So when we're experiencing distance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which was created by the yetzer, it's the Abish's way of saying, come home, come back to me. I want you to come closer. I want you to work harder. So that's what the yetzer does. He does that because he says there's a time you're going through something rough, make something good of it, and use it for the best. Just to finish, so that's the word that we want to say. We're just closing it. I do want to, this one gedank, the Baba Reb Chaim Hakohen used to come to Miami, and so while he was there, he used to stay by. There was a family named Kurtz from New York, from his Hasidim, and he used to stay over there at a swimming pool. And the Baba Reb needed to do different. He had to do different exercises. So he was doing different exercises inside of the pool, and he had to move his head this way and that way, up and down, back and forth. That's what he had to do. So when he was doing that, my father was in Adria. My father was standing there. He saw this happening. Told him just to get the exact wording. Sees him moving his head in the water, back and forth, up and down. As he's going up and down, he said, "Yo, Dafstinin, He's doing exercise, so he thinks he's on his own over there. My father's standing there watching. He says, "Yo, Dafstinin, As he went like this, he says, "Nein, Metunish noch geben the yetzer. Nein, Metunish noch geben." And this was avoided. So the tzaddik understands. He says, "I'm going to be Moshel him. I'm going to rule him. I'm going to be in charge." And yes, it's yetzer. It's a reality, but I'm going to use him for my purposes. I'm going to use him to become a much better person. Finishing, there's a pasuk that says, "V'kol asher titen li aser asrenu lach." Read it like this. It says the Sefer Lachs Machshavos from Moshe Chayfetz. He says, read it like this: "V'kol asher titen li asher Mashna Shirus asher asrenu lach." Anything that you give me, anything you throw at me, I'm going to become wealthy from it. Throw a hardball at me, I'm going to smack it for a home run. Put people on base, 2 hours, I'm going to make a grand slam out of it. Whatever you throw me, there's an opportunity to become wealthy through it. This is the Evan that we spoke about, and this is also the Nafshi Kafal Akotia that we spoke about. Thank you.
Yeah, Kaya.
The second time we see the idea of Evan.
Earlier on,
In the parsha with Yaakov.
Right.
It's how Evan.
The same Evan. So that's the same.
That was the Beishiva. That's what I was telling you before.
Is it in the beginning?
Otherwise, I'll be a Beishiva, right? Beishiva, which goes well with you. This is what the Edrei Svein we're telling him. We take it and we put it back. That's what you said. We put it back.
Very nice. Hey, we said a story from the Baba Roof. I had to make sure to stick in because of the outside.
Yeah.